everybody. Welcome back to Mediums in Action with me, Martin Litwelson, and my good friend and expert medium, Ian Doherty.
Good morning, everybody.
How are you doing, Ian? How are you keeping?
I'm fine. I feel very, very positive. I had a nice meditation earlier this morning, about 7:30. Just set me up for the day, so everything's looking good. What about yourself, Martin?
Yeah, same here. I'm still doing yoga and meditation as always. What I found with yoga is I do it not just because of the fitness, but also as a part of kind of a metaphysical practice, I want to say. I do find it kind of helps me connect almost with energy as well, strangely.
Yeah.
So sort of yoga at the moment is very much, they're turning it into Pilates, certainly in the West. It's fast. They're doing hot yoga now, which is where you're in a very hot room and you're sweating and you're doing all these positions very, very quickly. Yes, there is some speed to yoga, especially in certain asanas or series of positions. But what I found is certainly, and it might be my mediumship and magical training, is that when I do yoga, that there is an energy. I can feel the energy flowing, and maybe you want to call it the Chinese call it the chi. Mm-hmm. What we call it in spiritualism, you'd say it's your energy. But I certainly feel that it's certainly doing something. I can feel the energy building and moving around me, and it's interesting as well because as I explore more into Tantra and ignore all the stuff, whenever you say Tantra to everybody, their face sort of drops and thinks, "Oh my God, he's joined some sort of weird sex cult or something." But no. Tantra is not like that really at all. It's a very, very ancient and old tradition in India, and when you look at that, it is about there's a lot of similarities between how they connect to the universal consciousness, which is Shiva, and Shiva is a very slow moving consciousness that creates and destroys worlds and that sort of thing, and obviously it's a description of how the universe came together.
Well, yeah, it is.
And then there's this fast moving energy which connects you to Shiva, and that's Shakti, the female. The female is actually more active, more proactive. So when you've heard of Kundalini, and everybody says it sits at the base of the spine, and it just sits there, it doesn't. It's constantly moving. Again, the West has misinterpreted old texts, but Kundalini sounds very similar to when I talk to somebody like yourself, Ian, or my sort of when I connect to spirit. Sounds very, very similar to the tantric, where you are connecting through your third eye, and that connects to the universe, and it's raising your internal energy through breath work. So Kundalini in ancient texts sits around the belly sort of area. It doesn't really sit. It's constantly moving. With every breath in and out, it moves up and it shoots forward into the consciousness. So because we are all consciousness looking at ourselves. So we're all the universe looking at ourselves. So the consciousness is, self-aware. So it's interesting because I am seeing, we're looking at texts that have origins from sort of 4,000 years ago, RG Veda, which are very, very similar to sort of spiritualist texts. I certainly don't feel that, let's say, the Fox sisters or anybody like that had any idea of what the RG Veda was or
definitely not.
So it's interesting that there's that theme running through, and that sort of intrigues me as well. And we've talked before about ancient wisdom and how it's almost as if through humanity that there has been this overall pervading wisdom guiding mankind. It could have done with guiding people over this last couple of years with some of the decisions
definitely.
And that we've all made. The world seems very, very strange at the moment, but I certainly feel that it's a part of a learning process of humanity, and we'll go forward. And I certainly feel, and I think we both said this, that we certainly feel in this next 2-3 years there'll be a big change towards spiritualism or spirituality, and science like we've never seen before.
Yeah, I just feel it's very much leaping forward. Whether it's from fighting climate change, and bringing the world together, then I just get the sense it's awakening of consciousness.
And it's also awakening of compassion. I think
Mhm.
for too long we have been consumers,
Yes.
and we've all done it. We've all ordered from Amazon, we've all ordered from various places, and we've all ordered stuff and then never used it, or bought a piece of clothing and thought, oh, actually, And now we have to say, okay, where's this come from? Where's this being made? In front of me, I have a mouse that controls my laptop. How's that been made? Where's that been found from? How's that been created? What effect does that have on the environment? And also, what effect does that have on the human who made that, the person who made that?
Yeah, definitely.
I saw a fantastic documentary the other day called The True Cost. And in The True Cost, it was showing how a lot of major brands are using India's resources, India and Bangladesh's resources. And these people are literally sat in chemicals, in a particular chemical called chromium. And it's used to soften leather so they can make shoes. And it's pumped into the rivers. The land is poisoned. The animals are poisoned. And very, very sadly is the children and the adults in that area are all poisoned as well. So they have all these defects, and it's terrible. And all this just so we can have a pair of Nike trainers or whatever brand. I think the West has kind of got away with it in that we consume without actually thinking what the cost is, the real cost is.
Yeah, I know. I think really with the advancement in science, for instance, they can now clone meat. So there's less necessity to kill animals. And then when you're looking at it, they can do 3D printing that can make bones. It can make replicas of hearts. It can do all sorts. So we have the capability in science, certainly as it leaps forward, driven by the medical world. I do feel, whereby surely we can make clothes, we can synthesize them, and again, hopefully that takes away the true cost. Helps the land to heal. And gives us the opportunity worldwide to work together, as you said, compassion, empathy, the global consciousness.
Absolutely. We talk about global consciousness, but many of us don't think of the global cost in how we consume.
No, granted.
But it's about awakening. It's about whatever your beliefs in, whether there is a climate change or climate breakdown, or whether whatever your beliefs, you still have to look around, I think, and at least have compassion and empathy towards other people.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's been a really good couple of months with our course, and
yes.
I know we talk about it, everybody who's listening, but again, it's great. We're being inspired by our students. We have
127 now.
127 in, I think, 15 or 16 countries.
15.
Yeah, 15 countries. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you, everybody who's taking part. We both expected that not only would we be challenging our pupils, but also our pupils would be challenging us. And that is happening. We're getting feedback from people who have joined our Facebook forum. It's a private forum for anybody who signs up to our course. We've done it private so that people can ask questions without feeling embarrassed or worried about what the reaction will be. And a lot of the questions that have come over the last 2 months, there's an underlying theme. So we want to talk today about understanding what is spirit and what isn't spirit, especially when you start out as a medium. And I think let's start right at the beginning. I know, Ian, you had experiences as a child.
Yeah.
Then later in life, you decided to obviously do training. Did you went to Arthur Findlay? Did you? Was it Arthur?
No, I've visited there, but my sort of tutoring was in my local British church, and I'm ever thankful for the teachers that give me a negative as well as a positive outcome, because it comes from there. Tutors are people. I'm not having a go at them, but it sort of give me a more of a sort of a balanced thing, and particularly meeting you in the paranormal side. You open my eyes to a lot of things, and particularly an introduction to science. So there's many people in my life who've added rather to my spiritual development, but it all started when I walked through the doors of my local specialist church, and I've just really not looked back. As if I went there. There was a demonstration of psychic art, and this gentleman drew this face, and I thought, I know that. And he points to me, I want to come to you here. This is I'm getting the name Jack, and he was my step granddad, and we always called him Uncle Jack. And it was I thought myself, I'm looking at a photograph here. It was very, very well done. And the first thing that this gentleman said was, he's telling me to ask you what took you so long, and I'd been always thinking about going there, and it was about the timing really. So it opened a lot of doors, and it helped to understand the feelings I was getting from spirit, and that was a big sort of opening really.
What kind of feelings were you having? Because I think this is one thing that we need to talk to our listeners about, because I think most mediums have the similar experiences. So rather than repeat what I was having, if you can tell us, when you started to go to the mediumship, the spiritualist church, what sensations were you getting from spirit at that very beginning, if you can remember?
It was like walking into a room and the lights being turned up, and you're thinking, oh my goodness. But I was seeing people, and I thought, this is very, 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 very full place, and I didn't realise, fully that I was seeing, but it stood behind the medium who was talking. The feelings, to put it in a roundabout way, it is, I always reference it to, you can read a book, it's just plain text, there's no pictures, and it seems flat. The maybe the author is too documentary style, or too sort of laboured and difficult language, and you put the book down. And when I went into the spiritualist church, it was like having the same book. There was pictures, there was pop-up, there was music, there was multimedia, and that is what mediumship is. It's multifacets. You hear, you feel, you see. So I think that's a good term. I'll use that. But it's sort of, everything was just living. It was alive. The feelings were, I could honestly, I could have gone home without touching the floor, and I was on a high. But it was the realization that, prior to it, I particularly as a child, I tended to hide away from it. I was scared. I didn't know what it was. Coming to the church, and I still, in my teachings of many people, I always try to push forward, it's about the feelings, and I don't mean just the feelings in an emotional sense, but it's just, everything just seems lighter, it seems brighter, it seems more colourful, but you are seeing with your mediumistic abilities which overlap the physical senses. So you might, for instance, see a spirit person walking around the room as if that person was there, seen through the physical eye. So it sort of overlaps and enhances our everyday normal senses. And I never take that feeling for granted. When I'm talking to somebody, or I'm doing a reading for a person, the feelings come, and that is how I know spirit are very, very much there. Everything is enhanced, all the physical senses. You're thinking, wow.
When you start, kind of, I suppose it's admitting to yourself that you are you are now a medium, that your awareness increases. So when your awareness increases, you do start being aware of, you do start seeing figures, and that's something that happened with me, where I start seeing figures where I used to walk around, and I remember very, very clearly when I was very young, that I must have been about 16 or 17. I'd already been to spiritualist churches, and I'd got to that age where as a teenager, I was kind of not believing. So I was kind of, it's old people. I don't need to hang around old people, sort of thing. And I remember dropping off my girlfriend. I used to drop her off not outside the house, because Dad was a bit of a tyrant. So I used to drop her off at the crossroads and watch her walk home. And as I turned around, there was this old man walking towards me. And as I tried to get out of his way, he kind of stood in my way, and I thought, what's he doing, this guy? And I thought, I'm going to bump into him. And then he walked through me. I turned around, he was still walking on. And I thought, was that a ghost? Was that? And then I saw him again. And this time he was stood there and he was talking. It was like saying, hello, Martin. And to me, it was like, why is that ghost talking to me? Because I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't know it. But that's what happened with me at the beginning. There was, as you said, there was figures. There was sometimes you might see a figure or, some sort of movement. And then also you might hear voices as well. You might hear somebody say something or a weird statement, and it's very, very, it's not like it's in your mind. It's very, very clear, and it could almost be somebody whispering in your ear, couldn't it?
It could be, yes.
And I think certainly our perspective to get people to be more open towards spirit is we have it's very linked with meditation. When you meditate, and I teach meditation for mindfulness as well, and the people who come along to these courses or these days, when I teach them, they're not there to open up spiritually. Now, admittedly, some of them I do feel could be psychic or mediumistic. But when they're there, it's interesting what effects they have, because they're certainly not expecting any spiritual aspects to come through. But when you start first meditating, these are some of the things you need to watch out for. And certainly I don't feel that they're driven by spirit. And I think you'll agree as well, Ian.
Yeah, definitely.
Is when you first thing you do is when you relax into meditation, and certainly on our course, is the awareness of your body switches on, so you are aware of everything, and you should be aware of your breath. You should be able to feel that your tummy is moving in and out with your breath. You might be able to feel hairs in your nose. You might be able to feel cold. You'll be more sensitive. You'll be able to tell where the cold window is, and you're aware of that. And usually what people report is pins and needles on top of their head, or it almost feels like their hair is being moved or standing on end, or that kind of effect. And again, and you probably know the science behind this, but it is your body kind of being aware and probably becoming very hypersensitive around your head. So would you say that's right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, bearing in mind you are sat still. If there's a bit of a draft, then the hairs on the back of your neck, the top of your head, even on the arms will, the follicles will start rising in order to trap air, to make you warmer. It doesn't so much. I don't feel it would happen so much if the place was warm. You would tend to just relax. So that is one answer. It's a heightened, would you call it, a heightened awareness where the brain is thinking, am I in danger? Am I in danger? You're hearing more, and you're thinking, damn, my house is noisy. You hear the creaks, the groans, the cat going up and down, but whatever, because your brain is naturally thinking, am I in danger? What is happening? So that is part of it.
Certainly when I'm teaching mindfulness, and I'll say to people, go to the middle of your town centre or whatever and just sit quietly and try meditating. Because if you can meditate in all that and remove all of that that's happening around you and not be bothered, then you really do feel a sense of peace. And I remember about 2 years ago, and I wrote about this in a blog, that I went outside. It was a lovely sunny day, very, very quiet, and I decided I'll do some meditation in the garden. So I sat there. As soon as I sat there was a bin truck started coming around. I could hear the bin truck, and I could hear it. Then I heard this car come down the road, boom, 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 music banging around. He stopped, slammed on the brakes. What the F are you doing? Move your truck. And I'm thinking, forget that. Keep meditating. Relax. Keep breathing. Honestly, I had 2 RAF jets fly over. I had everything within 20 minutes. Because it was just a 20-minute session. I set my iPhone to alarm in 20 minutes. And it went through everything all the way through. And I thought that was a real lesson, that whether that was driven by spirit or whatever, or just coincidence. It was just interesting. And that's what I would say is when you start meditating, there are going to be effects that happen that you're not aware of because you've never experienced them before. And certainly, and in fact, we've talked about this before in that when you start doing something that you've never experienced before, you do have very strange effects. And certainly there's almost a demographic really of people who become mediums, and usually it's people who suddenly get that quiet time in their lives, or they're able to dedicate some quiet time, and then suddenly they're aware of messages coming from spirit. And it can be, messages can come in all sorts of ways and means, and it's interesting, on the forum people talked about some people get songs coming through, that people hear a song title or something like that. And I think that's a really nice way of spirit communicating, because spirit uses our mind to communicate with us. So the best way to do that is to connect you to something that you readily recognize. I think that's why certain people have songs. Would you agree with me in that respect?
Definitely. Spirit will utilize what you know. For instance, I'm a trained analyst, so my guide, spirit, when I'm talking there, are more apt to give birth dates, names, dates, and all of that could be put over as being data, rather than just the I love yous, which are very important when you're conveying a message. But it's the facts and figures, because I'm a trained analyst. I'm used to looking out for them. They will utilize the functioning of your mind in order to better utilize a convey message. That is why you have people who are very sympathetic. No, sympathetic's the wrong word.
Empathetic.
That's the one. Yes, thank you. I'm just checking you're listening. And then you're looking at people who've been through the mill and have that empathy, the compassion, will normally come over with more of a clairsentience, which is the feeling, and they will convey, oh, this person loves you so much. And and that is why I do feel that when you're going to see a medium, then trust that you're guided to the right one, depending on what you want. Because I do feel facts and figures, whilst it's almost standing back, still get the feelings, emotions. But I'm a very, very descriptive person. I will see spirit very, very clearly, and again, that is a faculty of me. I've always learned through seeing. If I see somebody do it, I'm more able to do it. Rather than having, oh, can you do this? I don't take it on board. If you show me, then I get on with it. Why I use YouTube and all that to how to change a tap. I see it happening, I'm more able to do it. So my functionality is visual with data. So I see and I get a lot of information, a hell of a lot.
There's another point here as well, is one of our students gave a message to somebody, and she described a umbrella and as being an important part, and described it. The woman could definitely knew what it was related to. It was correct. It was right. The message was right. But when the pupil actually saw what the umbrella looked like, it wasn't like what she envisaged or what was being told by the spirit. Now, from my perspective, the reason why she could not see that umbrella exactly was because she wasn't delivering a psychic message. She was delivering a message from spirit, and the best way that spirit could show her was by showing her something that she would recognize, because the importance here was the umbrella, not the description that maybe it was pink with yellow flowers or anything like that. What was important was that the spirit in question wanted to convey an umbrella with this particular curve, a particular curve on the handle. That was the important section.
Exactly.
So therefore, there was absolutely no need to really go to town on the description of an umbrella.
No, that's it. Yeah, there wouldn't be need, would they?
And if anything, what that proves to me is the pupil in question wasn't giving a psychic reading, and psychic is not frowned upon or anything. It just means that she wasn't giving a psychic reading. She wasn't reading the querent's mind. She was actually giving a direct message from spirit. And how spirit works with your mind is that it actually works with your experiences, what you will recognize to deliver the message.
Definitely.
So don't be upset if things are slightly different. And I always remember you telling me that if there was a woman of a certain age when Spirit was giving you a reading, you'd often see Nora Batty's, who's a character in a television show, with her stockings. She's a very old character with the stockings, and you'd see the stockings.
Yeah, it was. It was if people had bad legs and they weren't able to get, either not able to be walk or there was problems. I'd just be shown Nora Batty tight, which I learned was a shortcut for saying a person had bad legs.
Totally, and that's how Spirit was working with you. It needed to get, it needs to get the message across, and how it does that is it selects various aspects of your own experiences. And as Ian was saying, he's analytical, so they say, right, okay, they know that they can work with him by showing him the same imagery over and over again to mean a particular thing. So the communication's built up, the trust between Spirit and Ian is built up in such a way that they can show him the same imagery and know what response they'll get back from him. So it's like teaching an old dog tricks and saying that's all right. So the pupil was absolutely bang on, and I know the people afterwards said, well, why didn't I get it right? That wasn't the importance when you broke down what the reading was actually about was the actual curvature of the handle, and that had the importance. And it was a beautiful reading, absolutely beautiful, and it proved beyond a doubt that it was mediumship.
As many people do when they first start working as a medium, they get a lot of imagery. Like I say, they might see a car wheel, they might see a car, they might, like I say, see the image of an elderly person, whatever. But I do feel here, Clee, some of it is what is termed as shortcut. A very good thing to say there is the Nora Batty type shortcut for saying this person had bad legs, without going into saying it was joint arthritis, it was varicose veins, it was loop, whatever. They can just say the person had bad legs, and that suffices. And then there'd be more information given with it. But shortcut, another one. Whenever I heard a certain name, which used to be the woman who was my mum's neighbour when I was growing up, if ever I heard that name being mentioned, the person who I was talking to, the spirit person who was talking to me to talk to them, would have been their next door neighbour, and that's another link, and it's called shortcuts.
And also as well is I know if I see a red post box with a letter being put in, I know that person's going to get some news, and often I'll know that there'll be a sensation or feeling that comes with that news when that person is posting that letter, and I'll know if it's going to be something that's going to be potentially upsetting or potentially good news. So I know when I see a red post box, there's news coming, and that's coming through. One thing that we need to talk about as well that's very important: what is spirit and what is us? Certainly, again, when I teach mindfulness, I will have people saying to me, when I close my eyes, I keep remembering my mum who's passed, or I keep thinking about the food, or I see a shopping list, or I see this, or I see that. One thing you do is whenever you quieten your mind, whether you're walking into a haunted house, or whether you are sitting down with a friend and you relax and you stop thinking, or whether you're meditating and you stop thinking, your mind has to keep ticking over. And the way it does this is by firing hundreds of memories at you.
It does, yeah.
I know one of our pupils raised a very valid question about that. While she was meditating, she kept hearing her cousin's name. And obviously that could have caused some concern, but I think, again, it was because the pupil was relatively new to meditation, wasn't aware, and there's a feeling, isn't there, when you get a spirit message and when you get just a brain, let's call it a brain flash, like a brain impulse, I want to say. But there's a very different feeling, isn't there? I mean, how does it feel for you when you get the mediumship side?
Yeah, it is very, very different. It's even more, there's a lot more difference between your guide and a loved one of the person you're talking to in spirit. Now, your guide is somebody who is very, very conversant with the way that things work. They would know how you work, how your brain works, how your mind works, rather. And they are able to facilitate that comms between your a person's loved one, a friend, and the person you are talking to. So your guide energy is absolutely strong, so thoughts likely to come in and sound loud. Now when you first start, your thoughts, bearing in mind they're utilizing your brain and your consciousness, so when they first start talking, it sounds just like your own thought. If you say, for instance, to yourself in your mind, oh, I'm going to go to the bank, or I'm going to go to the shop and get some fags, then that is how spirit will sound, the same tone. What is different, and what starts off and it kindles the process, is the loud thoughts that you're thinking, why am I thinking about basketball, or what am I thinking about so and so? Because your guide's talking, and you have, in a subconscious way, noted there is a difference. You're reacting to it, so it's a subconscious element. Whereas if you say things in your own mind, it's consciously doing it. So it's a subconscious element, and that's the way that the thought waves are coming into the brain, rather than it's a subjective experience. Now what you need to be noting at, because there is a very marked difference in the feelings, bearing in mind emotions are being put over with it as well, and you will notice, and bear in mind, as you develop in an evidential process, you need to note the diction of the words. Are they saying words that you don't know? Bear in mind of what sort of dialect. If, like me, you're from Wales, and then you suddenly have thought patterns of "we I man," you're thinking, why that was supposed to be Geordie, by the way. Then you might thinking, I'm saying things that I know are from the Geordie dialect, or from the Birmingham, or Liverpool, or London. And one thing to note with your guide, a very marked difference in the sentence structure. My guide William, who is very much scientifically based, will use these extraordinary large words, where in the past I've had to go and check up what the hell they mean. I can say that it's not my thoughts, because I don't understand the word.
Also, now, I'd just like to interject as well.
Of course.
Also, when we published Ian's first book, Ian's actually written a fantastic book. It's definitely well worth checking out. It's called Teachings from William. I had to proofread that book, which was incredibly hard. It was probably the hardest book I had to proofread because I could tell when Ian was writing, because it sounded very much like him. And then suddenly it was almost as if somebody had pushed him off the keyboard and started writing from a very scientific perspective, and also in a grammatic style that was very, very Victorian. The words that we used and pulled together weren't the typical words that I would see Ian place in a grammatic context.
Yeah.
So they were very, very different. And while trying to get the consistency through the book, there would be these swathes where I could see where Ian was offering an introduction and talking about a particular aspect, and then suddenly the next paragraph, it was like William had taken over, and trying to get the consistency through a book was very, very hard.
Yeah, sorry about that, mate.
It's not your fault, it's William's. No. But no, you're right. And when you start off, I know people say, well, how do I know it's not my imagination? But have you prompted that thought? Is that thought that's come to you?
Exactly.
Is it come to you for a particular reason? Have you been listening to that song? Have you been in a car full of the radio playing, and you've not been listening, and then suddenly you realise, okay, I can discredit that one? But if you get song titles and you're thinking, well, why am I hearing this? What's that coming through? Or why is my thoughts telling me this? And it feels different, and it seems different. That's when you know you're getting your spirit connection.
Yeah.
And certainly when it's your spirit guide, you will hear it more familiar. So it's almost like you've got another friend with you.
Yeah.
Putting you straight as you're talking, or as you're doing something. They could tell you, oh, do you know there's something here? Do you know there's an energy here, or there's some, oh, you need to call your mum, or you need to do this. You can tell when it's not your thought pattern, and actually it's your guide giving you a little push to do something.
Yeah, definitely. When it's in your quiet moments, you're doing a meditation, then the words from spirit are concerned with you. So it'll be things about you, or you're getting a phone call about work later, things like so. when you're in company of people, then the information coming will be to do with one or multiple of, if you're going, say, to a venue or whatever, you might get little bits of snippets about going there, and you will certainly get little bits of sort of info about the road ahead. Slow down, there's a car in the road. You slow down, and there's a car coming round the opposite side of the road around a blind bend. So they do look after you that way.
Sorry, I think also as well is it's not just about danger as well. It's not because I remember driving down back to Sheffield, and I can take two roads. I can take the A1 or I can take the M1. And Spirit clearly said, take the A1. Now, I hate driving on the A1 because it's only a two-lane road. And if there's any lorries, you can be stuck behind them. So I hate driving on it. So I thought, I'll go the M1. I'll go the M1 way. And I was stuck in traffic for 3 hours. And I was late. So it's just, and it was clearly, my sat nav was saying go A1. And I'm thinking, no, I'm going to go M1. I hate driving on the M1. And Spirit clearly said, my guide said, go A1. And I didn't. And I went, and I ended up, as I say, I think it was about 3 hours stuck in traffic. So now I do listen, and it does work. It's interesting actually how it works. And I think not only is it, your spirit guide is also a connection to the consciousness.
Yeah. And
I think certainly my spirit guide, it wasn't operating as a sat nav, but it knew in the consciousness that people were, that it was important that I needed to get down to Sheffield. Yeah. It wanted me to get down there as soon as I can without being stressed out. So it knew in the consciousness that people were gathering up on the M1 and that I was going to be stuck. So it wasn't predicting the future. It just knew that the consciousness was collecting there and said, go A1. And I didn't listen. So
no, you're right. I mean, there's times when I've been out either to do a demo or to do a paranormal thing, and it's very much a case of leave early. I think, oh, all right, then I leave early anyway. But I thought, all right, there must be traffic build up, so I checked my route, found out there is, and I go a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I used to run a ghost hunting company, I always remember very, very clearly. It was going to Dudley Castle that night, and it got to about 3:00, about half an hour before I was due to set off, and Spirit said, phone Dudley Castle. I'm thinking, so I went online, Dudley Castle, nothing. No, couldn't find nothing. I thought, and it phoned Dudley Castle. I thought, and then I got the feeling. It wasn't the word, but I got the feeling I wasn't going to Dudley Castle. I thought, I need to phone Dudley Castle. So I phoned up Dudley Castle. And unfortunately, there was a massive protest outside Dudley Castle gates. The cooking staff couldn't get in because the people wouldn't move. The cooking staff couldn't get in. Nobody could get in. And the event was cancelled. And luckily, I was able to phone people around and tell them that the event was cancelled because of the protest. The interesting thing is if I'd have ignored that, I would have driven all the way down to Dudley. Mm-hmm. There would have been all that protest. I wouldn't have been able to phone everybody. Everybody would have turned up. So not only would I have been affected, but also, the 30 odd other people that were attending as well. So
no, granted.
So yeah, I mean, little things like that happen, and some people say, oh, it's your intuition, but it's not my intuition that anything was going to happen on Dudley. It was confirmed early in the week. Numbers were given. I knew exactly who was attending. I had no inclination at all to phone Dudley on Saturday. Not only that, Dudley Castle offices are closed on Saturday. So again, my consciousness would be saying, don't phone Dudley Castle because they're closed. Luckily, I found the kitchen and found out exactly what was happening. The manager was there, but none of the staff could get in or out. Because of this massive protest.
Yeah, no, it's. I think on when people want to know is it me or is it them, it's those instances that prove it has to be them, because otherwise there'd be no prior knowledge. You wouldn't know. Oh, by the way, unless you're one of those people who check the map, who check the traffic, 3 hours before they're going to travel, just in case. But normally you just wouldn't know. Telling you, go this way or go that way, and it saves a lot of hassle, doesn't it? A lot of frustration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, little things where I remember Lichfield Guildhall, a fantastic place. Just as I was leaving, my guide said to me, take the planchette. A planchette's a triangle kind of automatic writing tool. You place your fingers on it and it writes. I mean, obviously, Ian, you know this, but
Yeah.
and I thought, well, I never take it. I never. And I've got one, and it's an antique one. And I thought, well, why am I taking this? And I got there, and there was one woman. She was in her late 70s. She used to be very much in the mediumship scene. She said to me, she said, I would really love to do a planchette tonight. I bet you don't do those, do you? I said, well, it's interesting that, actually. And we did a planchette. It just made a night. Obviously, I think it was Spirit saying thank you to her, because she got a wonderful message from it as well.
Oh, bless.
Yeah, I think it's about mediumship, and especially the early parts is about, I think keeping a diary is very, very important, and that's good for your confidence. So if you do get successes, write those down. If you do get reoccurring messages, write those down. So you do understand how Spirit's building up a rapport, how your spirit guide's building up a rapport with you. If you're in meditation and you are getting bombarded with imagery and things like that, just pull yourself out of the meditation, restart, and I think that will be the best thing, because it sounds to me that if anybody is getting bombarded, they're just thinking too much.
Yeah.
They need to really start calming themselves down, and then even say in your mind, right, Spirit, show me something. Talk to Spirit, and then they'll start. But if you or even just say out loud, Spirit, I don't want anything for the first 5-10 minutes. Let me meditate. Then at least mentally you've got that. That Spirit's not going to contact you for the first 5-10 minutes, and that you can get yourself relaxed in meditation. You can get yourself relaxed, and then you can say to yourself, especially if you're doing the meet your guide, you can ask your guide to come forward, and then you can start that process.
Yeah.
But otherwise, just be careful with meditation, especially if you first started, because you will get multiple effects that are nothing to do with mediumship or spirit.
Just to remember, folks and folkesses, your own thoughts may well in time feel almost flat, whereas mediumship ones, where your guide or a loved one from world of spirit, because it incorporates feelings, emotions, everything, then it feels as if it's ever so light, it's in full colour, and it's living and dancing. And that's it. I always say to people, pay attention to how you feel, or how those words, those thoughts feel when they first come to your mind. And once you realise it, you will always know when your guide is there.
Is your guide hitting the microphone at the moment?
No.
All right, he's just gone boing boing.
No, I am sat, I would say, about 14 inches away from it, so I don't get the noise that we've had in the past.
It's doing it again now.
No, I'm not. I'm nowhere near it, mate.
There's something flicking the microphone. It's going boing boing.
No.
Really?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not. I'm nowhere near it, Martin.
Honestly, I'll have to play it back to you, because
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe Spirit's agreeing. I don't know, but but yeah, myself and Ian, we've started our next course, which is for people who are interested in becoming professional ghost hunting mediums. Or people who just want to know more about how to ghost hunt as a medium, and it's very, very in depth with details about equipment, about methodology. And then we're working on the psychic course. I think a lot of people are interested in the differences between a medium and a psychic. We've covered this before in a previous podcast, but what intrigued me with the pupil we talked about with the umbrella is it definitely must have been a spirit-led reading rather than psychic, because I think if it was a psychic reading, that's when you would have picked up aspects of the querent's mind, and probably I think you would have got the detail of the umbrella, wouldn't you?
Yes.
But so what are you up to this week, Ian?
Well, I'm doing my normal readings. I'm really pushing into my artwork, and I can't believe how it's sort of panning out. And my guide told me it would be going in different directions. So I'm doing my psychic art in oils. I've done, which is probably my last pastel drawing now for some time. I'm focusing on the oils and the water-based acrylics, but I'm going now into mixed art media, where I'm adding little bits and pieces to drawing the background in with oil pencils and oils, building stuff in a 3D, and then I'm going to be starting what I understand is assemblage art, but again, both facets or all facets are spirit driven. My first foray into the assemblage art, if I can pull it off, I've been shown a little bit of what is wanted, and it's going to be a Barbie doll that's going to be painted, decorated a little bit, have angel wings on the back, and pose in such a way, as if sort of peering over a grave, whatever, to show you that even in death there is life. So if I can pull it off, it's going to be lovely.
It's interesting because assemblage art, it's very, very prevalent in a lot of traditional and African folk magic, where certainly in Christianity and other religions, although God said that you're not meant to worship icons, certainly in Catholicism, obviously you have these massive statues that you can't touch them. You're not allowed to repaint or anything. An icon. You couldn't get a Virgin Mary and repaint it pink or anything, because that would be classed as that you're damaging the artifact. However, if you look in a lot of the folk magic traditions or the traditions of Africa, they will create deities and then you will personalize them. They are a representation of spirit. You have things like fetishes, where you will have something that will protect your house and you will decorate it in a particular way. You might put, a miniature baseball cap, give him a cigar, or, you'll personalize it to connect it to you. So it sounds very similar in that respect, is that spirits, kind of driving you to create this art that will connect with somebody.
Yeah, I feel so.
Yeah, it's very, very similar. But it's nice seeing all the pupils. It's also all the lovely feedback that everybody keeps giving to us about this podcast. Wherever you listen to us, if you can leave a review or 5 stars or anything, please do, because it does help.
Please.
It does help us. Thank you. That's all we ask of you. And thank you, Ian. And this has been Mediums in Action.
Bye.